Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. Today, everything is free. As of yesterday and for the next 2 weeks until July 22nd, Bungie has made every DLC free. This includes the most recent Final Shape DLC and its episodes. And while all of this DLC is free to play, free to try, every single piece of loot, whether it's an exotic or a legendary weapon that you get while playing, is yours to keep, even if you don't own whatever DLC it comes from. So if you're a new player who's been eyeing some loot but has been wanting to spend the money, now's your chance to get that. Or if you're a veteran wanting to get your friends into the game, now is a pretty good time to get them some fun things to play with. In this video, we're going to be going in DLC by DLC, telling you which loot you should actually be going for over the next 2 weeks. At the end, I'll also recommend which ones across all DLCs are best, so you know where to start. And if you are a veteran, you play this game every day, you don't need me to tell you anything, I would appreciate it if you skimmed through the video and then left your thoughts on what loot players should be gunning for in the comments below. Now quickly, before we begin, I would also like to say that if you enjoy this content and you're excited for the Edge of Fate, make sure you do subscribe so you don't miss an upload of mine. But now into the actual video. The first thing we need to do is talk about the multiple sources of loot in this game. Across everything I'm going to talk about today, there will be quest rewards, campaign rewards, random drops, and then things that you can purchase with in-game materials for guaranteed acquisition. Seeing as there are only 2 weeks of DLC open access, you're not going to get everything on this list. But as we cover each piece of loot, you can plot out which ones you actually want to hunt for. So starting chronologically, we have the Forsaken DLC, which actually has the most exotics of any DLC available. This DLC doesn't have many quest rewards that are particularly desirable, so instead the focuses are on what you can purchase and grind for. Starting with the kiosk here, which we'll be returning to a lot, we have our weapons. The best one by far from this DLC is Izanagi's Burden. This sniper, first off, looks extremely cool, but it's a fantastic sniper for dealing massive amounts of damage in an instant, close to the highest single damage instance in the game. After the sniper, we have a very iconic Destiny weapon, and that is the Ace of Spades. This hand cannon isn't particularly powerful, but it is pretty cool, and if you like to dabble in Crucible, the PvP, then I would definitely recommend picking this up. And then the last weapon here is one that has been extremely popular over the last couple months, and that is Monarch. This bow is all about poisoning enemies, and due to how Destiny is built, this often causes some very powerful things to emerge when mixing that damage over time with other pieces of the sandbox. But moving on from the kiosk and purchasable weapons, we have 2 weapons that you need to look out for as you get exotic engrams over the next 2 weeks, and that is the Queenbreaker and Lord of Wolves. These 2 weapons you can't farm for, so you can't guarantee that you'll get them. But right now, these are the 2 best weapons in the entire game. So do keep an eye out as they do come from the Forsaken DLC, and you might get lucky with an exotic drop. And then after exotic weapons, we have exotic armor. And unfortunately, I don't believe there is a time-efficient way to get most armor in this game, as you need to grind a lot of resources, and that will take away from grinding out your preferred exotic weapon or just enjoying the content that Destiny has to offer. Some exotic armor does come from completing campaigns though, so we will talk about those as you can get them guaranteed. As for Forsaken, the campaign isn't in the game and it doesn't offer rewards, so that's all there is to this DLC. Moving on, we have the Shadowkeep DLC and 3 weapons from the kiosk that you should think about getting. First of them is Witherhoard. This damage over time special grenade launcher is very strong. It's definitely one of the best weapons on the entire list, and it helps specifically with things like boss damage. I have even heard that these pools akin to Molotovs are pretty good in PvP. But then after that, we have Ariana's Vow. This is a special ammo hand cannon that is particularly good against barrier champions. It does high damage, it's definitely fun, and on the grand scheme, it is fairly powerful. And then the last purchasable weapon is Leviathan's Breath, which is a heavy bow. This is an incredibly unique exotic and can be very strong against bosses or against champions. If you're a bow fan, definitely think about picking this one up. But then to finish out the Shadowkeep DLC, we have 1 quest that you can still complete to get a very strong weapon guaranteed without needing to spend any resources. And that is the Xenophage Heavy Machine Gun. This is very strong for dealing with high health targets and even doing a little bit of boss damage. And it comes from a quest that involves the Pit of Heresy dungeon. I'm not going to go over quest steps or how to start these quests in this video, as it would make the video an hour long. But if what you're seeing now is somewhat interesting to you, then you can look up how to do that quest, and I'm sure something's going to come up telling you exactly what to do. Now into the next DLC, you'll see we're at the kiosk, and there actually isn't a weapon here that I think you need to spend your resources on. Rather, from the Beyond Light DLC, there are 2 quests that I think you should pursue. One is the quest for the Lament. This is an exotic sword that is very powerful in all sorts of builds and is always a strong boss damage option against anything that you can use swords against. The next weapon though that comes from a quest is maybe the most iconic Destiny weapon ever, and that is Gallarhorn. This rocket launcher comes from the Grasp of Avarice dungeon, so you will need to dabble in that content, but it is a guaranteed quest drop and you can easily do it within the next 2 weeks. And then again, for armor here, Beyond Light's campaign did not have a reward, so there's nothing really to mention here. Now moving on to the 4th DLC, we have the Witch Queen. One weapon here that I would recommend purchasing from the kiosk is Grand Overture. This exotic machine gun thing is really only used for boss damage, but it is quite powerful. However, this isn't the only exotic that I think you should get from this DLC. The next one is Osteostriga, and this one drops from completing the Witch Queen campaign. This is an SMG that is all about poisoning enemies, and you can easily clear an entire room with just using this. And also as a campaign reward, depending on the character you complete it on, you'll get a selection of 2 pieces of exotic armor. For Warlocks, out of the 2, I would choose Osmiomancy Gloves. This exotic gives you 2 grenade charges for your stasis grenade, which has incredible build potential, especially when you start to think about stasis turrets. For Titans, I would choose the Lorelei Splendor Helmet, as this will give you tons of survivability and healing when playing on Solar Titan. And then for our Hunters, I would choose Renewal Grasps. These aren't the flashiest exotic, but they are very strong in end-game content, giving your team lots of damage resist, and it's a fairly unique playstyle. And then post Witch Queen campaign, the last thing to recommend from the DLC is another quest exotic, and that is Parasite. This quest becomes available after beating the campaign like I just said, and you're seeing the weapon in game. It's a grenade launcher that shoots worms. It's very cool, it's very fun, and this worm is actually, I think, the single highest damage projectile in the entire game. Moving on, we have the second to last DLC, which is Lightfall. Within the kiosk, the 2 weapons that I would recommend purchasing are Exdirus and Dragon's Breath. Exdirus is its grenade launcher that has no magazine and essentially turns you into a hive knight, as well as spawning these moths, which are actually very strong. It does great damage, it has awesome ad clear. This thing is nothing to scoff at. On the other end of the spectrum of weapons though, we have Dragon's Breath, which is a rocket that is all about doing single target damage. The rockets from this launcher embed themselves in your enemies and then do tons of explosive and burn damage over time. Perfect for anybody wanting to shoot their heavy and then deal a little bit more damage with your other weapons. The next items to recommend from the Lightfall DLC are the campaign rewards. This DLC was when the Strand subclass was released, and so each class got a Strand exotic armor piece, and that is what I would recommend for everybody. For Titans, that is the Abeyant Leap exotic legs. For Warlocks, that is the Swarmers exotic legs. This really helps you if you want to be that summoner class. Then for Hunters would be Certarachne's Facade, which is all about grappling around and giving yourself massive damage resist. And then the last item to recommend for Lightfall is something that comes after the campaign, and that is the Winterbite quest line. This is a heavy glaive and it does absolute tons of damage. It does have this cool stasis projectile, but most of the time we just use this to slice up bosses with its insane melee combos. And then lastly, we have the most recent DLC being the Final Shape. None of the kiosk exotics here are particularly worth it, but there is some very good stuff to get in the entire thing. The first thing that'll come up is the campaign rewards. Each class will once again have 2 to choose from. For Titans, I would recommend it the Hazardous Propulsion chest piece. This is going to beef up your rockets and rocket sidearms. For Hunters, I would recommend the Gifted Conviction exotic chest piece. This is a very powerful one in endgame content, giving you lots of survivability and some extra lethality when dipping into Arc. And then for my Warlocks, I would definitely recommend the Speaker's Sight helmet. This helmet is all about healing teammates, but it is by far the most powerful source of healing in the entire game. And then after the campaign, you will have 2 quests available to you. One of them will give you the Still Hunt exotic sniper. This is an incredibly unique and powerful sniper, as it has its own super. You can even see that it has a super bar, and it does very good damage when you do cast it. After Still Hunt, the next quest that you'll get after beating the campaign is for Microcosm, which is a heavy ammo trace rifle, kind of like a machine gun. This is another weapon that is great for melting bosses and doing ad clear. It's also kind of fun to just shoot a giant laser. And of course, the last thing to mention, as we're still talking about the Final Shape, is that we do have 3 episodes at least for the last week of this DLC. That means only about 4 days once this video comes out. Each of these episodes, meaning Echoes, Revenant, and Heresy, have their own exotic mission and loot, and while the exotic rewards are very good, I don't think they're super worth your time if you're trying to get the older things and aren't wanting to spend money on that. It's also a massive time crunch, so I really wouldn't worry about it. Now, with all that said, you do have limited time and you have limited currency, and I just went over a lot of exotics that you might want to get. So disregarding the quest exotics, as you'll be guaranteed to get those, which purchasable exotics should you prioritize? For me, I would say Wither Horde, Izanagi's Burden, Exteriors, and Leviathan's Breath are all of your best options across all DLCs. You should be able to purchase a good amount of exotics over the next 2 weeks, and if you have no idea what you want, then I would probably start with those 4. And I think that's everything I have to say. I would like to point out that 2 weeks is not a lot of time, and there's a lot of Destiny 2 content to go through. Watching this video, or if you're trying to get your friend into Destiny, I imagine you're not going to be grinding that much, as if you are, you probably would have already spent some money. In these cases, I would just try to sample what Destiny 2 has to offer. Do the campaigns, enjoy whatever loot you do get, and if you happen to get some extra currency, then do spend that on one of these recommended exotics. But there is a ton of good stuff that you'll get by just playing the game, and you don't want to burn someone out by trying too hard, as they're just now seeing if they like the game or not. There is so much to grind for, like random armor drops, and that can be saved for after you've decided that you like the game. But with all that said, thank you so much for getting this far into the video. Your viewership is greatly appreciated. If you want to support me and support the channel, a like, a comment, a subscription goes a very long way. If you want to support me and support the channel but you can't think of a comment down below, fresh blood. And with that, as usual, I hope you are having a great day, and I hope to see you around.